Hey, Jared, welcome back to Smack Talk.
Hey, Austin, welcome back to Smack Talk.
Thanks for having me. Today, we will be reviewing Never Stop Blowing Up, episode 6.
6. Already over the hump.
Over the hump, going downhill, going fast.
Yeah, going real downhill according to this episode.
You did not like it?
No, I'm just kidding. It was great. I thought it was like really, really good.
Interesting. Okay, I think we'll have differing opinions then, because I thought this was pretty middling.
No! Fuck, dude. Every fucking time, I swear.
Yeah, we're never aligned. Let's just jump into it then. I'll predict the things you liked. Number 1, I think you really liked how the reflections are paying off. Specifically, you like that Greg Stocks did not choose to talk to Dang in that moment. Number 2, I think you really enjoy the comedy of Allie continuing to get kicked in the head throughout the entire episode. And number 3, I think that you liked the thematic statement of a family this episode, where they all kind of agreed that family is when you beat someone until they're about to die and then you don't kill them. And that's like the difference.
That's a very interesting last one. I think that's like completely antithetical to what the fuck I say family is, because that's like what your dad who's fucking punching you says. Family is that they love you so much that they don't kill you, but they still punch you. It's like
But
what
I
your
think 'cause
asshole
you were-
brother says
okay,
when he
okay.
puts your head in
I
the
forgot to put a
toilet.
little preface before it, because you're still like not as in tune with like action movies. I think you just like that as like a action universe philosophy.
My entire list for this episode is just like all three of them are real life video store character and NSPU characters fusing. The Dang and Greg Stocks thing, very great. But also my other two are Iffy and Vic. The actual combination of the characters, like doing the Predator handshake and fusing together, is absolutely insane. Makes it all worth it. Makes every bit of clunky nonsense from before amazing. And really what I've been looking for the entire time is the sort of the story that the D&D campaign is describing. Like all of the dice rolls and everything make it a little silly, but I am ultimately captivated by like what they are telling. And it like all came to a head in that moment. The same thing goes for G13 and Usha. Putting story weight behind how much of two completely different characters they were before, and how much of an abrupt jump from one to the other I said there was, is like that's, we're bringing value to this strange thing that I had an issue with, and that is, I don't know, master level playing.
I have to say, I'm surprised, and I'll just spoil it. I'm wrong on all my predictions of what you disliked, because I thought I'm not mad at anything that about the reflections and like how the characters are becoming one, but it didn't seem objectively good. So I'm very surprised that you liked them, and all my dislike predictions are already wrong.
I guess it doesn't have to be objectively good. It just has to not be like close to objectively bad before it is something that's making me apprehensive. It's almost like making me look at the table and go like, oh, am I like comfortable in, and is this the best story that's being told with everybody, everything that everybody's doing? But when it turns into, if he proposed something in episode 2 that then becomes like the driving force for how we fix something that happened between episode 1 and 2.
Yeah. I just feel like it was affecting the drive to get out of the movie. If everyone's so like in sync with who they are and like really enjoying it, and the takeover is almost seamless, then it does feel like they're going to hop in and out of this movie a lot, and like aren't going to teach Barsimian to like finally let go. It feels like they're going to agree with the quote unquote antagonist of their story and be like, you know what? You're right. Never Stop Blowing Up's fucking sick. I'm going to keep jumping in too. I'm going to kind of forget my real life and stay in here. And that feels like the wrong lesson. So
Yeah.
I didn't put it in my dislikes because I think it's fine and fun and whatever. And like maybe they're not thinking about real world ramifications, but I thought you might be. And I thought that the takeovers were interesting, but not objectively good.
It's the kind of world building to me that just like makes it feel more purposeful than before.
Interesting. I think it's realistic. Like that's what would really happen.
Yeah.
But I think I disagree with the word purposeful because
It feels
isn't giving the story purpose.
Yeah. I guess it makes the previous stuff feel purposeful, maybe not the future stuff.
Okay. Sure.
I'll predict your stuff now.
Okay.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. You had me. You put me as having the kicks on mine, so I'm not going to say that one. I'm going to go back to my honorary mention. I think that your three were, the first one was the extended dog story. I think you really laughed when Brennan just started going, oh yeah, but that car, the dogs weren't in there because that was a hologram. And it's just like that extended joke, and him almost just doing it for himself was funny. I think these two are more conceptual. I think that you liked the Paula Jack like union there that was happening, and like what's happening with her character development, and that it was just starting to get developed more, and that was her weird, not really great version of the other two people's really good versions of combining with their characters. And then I think you like the concept of adrenaline level. I think you thought that was like snap worthy. Like, oh fuck, that makes
Remind
sense.
me, break that one down more.
Once you get to the third level of injury, you have like one hit KO, but you have 10.
Got it. I forgot it was called adrenaline. I put that in mechanics, and I'll share my thoughts there, I guess.
Okay.
I left it out of likes. Okay, one, you were absolutely correct. So I'll break fourth wall. My notes app didn't save what I wrote, so I had to kind of just remember what I wrote, and I did have Brennan's dog hologram joke in the top 3. But it's not there anymore, so you're wrong.
No, you can't keep doing this to me. I'm kidding.
I have first one, which was I'll tell you which one got replaced with. The first two they were what they were before, but I couldn't remember the dog hologram joke, so I replaced that one. Anyways, number one, he's gonna kill you with your son, but then Reika's additional comment that Izzy really needs a second son in that moment to help with the DC. I don't remember. Do you remember what specific mechanic was happening to where, like, if she had a second son, then she could redo the dice?
It was the same weapon.
Yeah.
You could do more damage.
Yeah. I forgot some of the context when I was rewriting it just now, but in the moment I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I feel like that's what D&D is supposed to be. Where, like, again, like I tell you, I think I've said this every episode now, but I really like when a world like creates unique interactions and opportunities through its own rules. And then
this is a really good example of that for me, because part of me was like, oh man, can we reveal somebody else as a son in this moment? Like, we have to do it because that'd be so good.
It's so good. I liked it a lot. Number 2, it's same as yours. Dang just wanting to quit. And then, but again, like at that additional moment right at the top where he's like, he wants to quit, and then he rolls and he gets a nat 1. And it's just like, oh, wow. I think it's, I couldn't figure out how I wanted to phrase it. And maybe to an extent, this is always true, but sometimes you make the story justifies the role often. But in that moment, I felt like the role justified the story.
Yeah. No,
already
the dice
said,
are a tool.
Yeah, but usually you use the tool to like move the story forward. Jake had already written at that point that he was in a quitting mentality, and then the dice verified that, which I feel like is more rare. So I really like that. And then I did have the hologram joke, but then I changed it to the pissing joke of when Reika makes the person in the car and never stop pissing themselves. I particularly like that because that used to be a legitimate fear of mine, and so it feels like a really good consequence. But sometimes I would pee for like a minute and 30 seconds, and I would get really scared that it would just never stop.
How am I supposed to predict what you like about these episodes if it's that?
It's never gonna end.
How am I supposed to do anything about that?
It's super easy. It's always Brennan, Reika, and Jake. It's always them. They're always what create the moment. So just what's the best thing they did?
Every episode I watch, I keep going like, oh, maybe I should write that down, but it's not as good to me as other things in the episode. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna get burned if I just do Reika, Brennan, Jake. I'm gonna get burned.
They are the best improvers that I can see. But then also keep in mind the rubric that I've already established for you. Like, I really like the something that I can get from this episode that I'm not going to get anywhere else. Like that's usually my metric.
Yeah.
I'm not going to see the never stop pissing anywhere else. I'm never going to see the I need a second son to help the DC check anywhere else.
That's fair. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Real quick before we move on, I think I'm gonna give my golden heart, or one of them, I guess, since we have three, I guess, to the Iffy Vic stuff, because that is just a payoff that didn't know I was waiting for and now have gotten.
That's so crazy to me. That's so crazy. But I'm glad you like it.
This was for me proof that like everybody deserves to be at this table. You know, not that I needed proof, but that like it was. Everybody can kind of just play to their strengths, but this one was like genuinely everybody was working at the same level instead of kind of some episodes where it's like, oh, some people have more time here, more time there, you know?
Yeah.
But let's go on to dislikes.
Let's do it. So first one, I feel super confident. If I could golden buzzer my like, oh my God, this one's for sure on your list, then I would. Izzy. Okay. Gaming the tokens with just wanting to drive somewhere into town. I think that enraged you. Number 2, I don't think that you liked when the noise was going off and then Brennan reveals that the people are just pretending that it hurts their ears and like the dog are men and men are dogs illusion is finally broken. And that's like, you didn't have to break it, Brennan. Why can't their ears just actually hurt? And then I had that G13 has fully taken over Usha as one, but you already said that you liked that. So we'll just move past that one.
Interesting. Yeah, no, we're definitely learning a little bit about each other in this because and it might help our campaign in the future. But definitely for me, something that comes, whether or not it's that good, that makes something bad different, is likely to be a good thing for me. So it's like, oh, okay, we're building. Just building is good. You were right about one. I do have written down on one of my negatives. It's the one that you put the golden buzzer on, but it's sort of written differently. I put a lot of joking about freebies, and it was written down in that moment where I was like, they keep doing this thing where they're like, oh, I want to get more tokens, I want to do this thing. Or like there was a lot of jokes in this episode where they just go like, are you sure I can't just take this token? Are you sure? Oh. Or maybe if I just pay 1, I can blow up. And it's like, what do you want Brennan to say? Like, the rules are fucking insane. They're so leaning towards like making sure nobody dies and whatever. Like it's such after a few jokes, it's like like funny, but like get serious, in the nicest way possible. So I do think that counts. My other 2 though, you did have wrong. I had the reference to the Suriname toad. I fucking hate that. I hate the little toad with the little bubbles on its back. It's disgusting. And I don't like thinking about it. It just is like, I don't know. I've always had that weird, gross ick. And they brought it up and they get a negative point just for that, even though they don't like it either.
Okay, you just complained about my pissing thing. How the hell am I supposed to predict that?
Okay, hold on.
You're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite.
That is fair. Yours, though, is crazier for sure because mine, Reika, literally goes like, ew, that thing that everybody knows about. And your thing is like, that was a deep fear that I had one day in 2006 when I woke up when I was a child. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh, every day. Anytime I pee longer than a minute, I'm like, oh my God, it's never going to stop. I'm going to piss gallons.
Have you seen the Whitest Kid You Know sketch that's that?
No. Probably for good reason. I probably avoided it. No, it's scary. Okay, it's a common fear. Yeah.
It's really funny. Okay. My third one was there's just one moment in this where Reika's rolling for a blow up. And if he, I think it's the one where Reika rolls like a 50 something or whatever.
Yeah.
But if he on the first blow up goes like, whoa, like very small and strange to do. And then subsequently there are like 3 other blow ups that happen that he has already blown the like, whoa on. And it's just like, he goes very silent. And I was like, if I was doing like a meme edit of this episode, I do just zoom in on Iffy's little whoa when it was the tiny one, and then it just keeps blowing up like 4 times. It's just like a really funny, stupid, awkward moment at the table where like you, as a presenter, you probably put your energy into things and you're like, oh yeah, I'll throw some energy into this moment. And it was just like, oh, you massively undershot that this was going to be like very, very integral to this character. Very
Interesting.
silly.
I like that.
Little complaint, but
Yeah.
it's like so little I had wrong with this episode that like that for me was like, oh, lol.
You want to predict my dislikes?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not too sure about these, but we're gonna go for it. Okay. I think that you didn't like that they weren't actually fighting the dogs when we thought at the end of the last episode. I think that was possibly it. Whether or not it ended up in a funny joke about the dogs leaving. I think you didn't like. There was one point at which Jacob is doing a thing where he's like, "Oh, can I say that the sound reminds me of a gig?" And then Allie goes, "Oh, because you're immune." And then Jacob's like, "Oh, not yet, not yet." I think you didn't like that. Allie kind of overstepped that moment for Jacob. And then I don't think you like the whole conversation around Doug Meat getting a hug. And like what the logistics of that were and why we focused on that so much.
Okay. I'll start with that one because in a way you're correct, but no. I think Reika's instincts are correct. And one of my predictions for later is that Doug is a fucking traitor. I never liked Doug, and I wanted him to be dead already. I can't believe he's still alive. Never liked
It'll
him.
never happen.
I need him to die. So what I don't like, I liked the discussion between Reika was like trying to trust their instincts on whether or not they should hug or not hug Doug and ended up with a handshake. I really liked all of that. I just didn't like all the gaslighting that was happening about them saying that Reika should have done it. They're like, no, Reika's instincts were correct. Screw all of you for telling Reika otherwise. That's what I didn't like. Everyone's commentary. But I did like let's
That's what
take
I
a step
said, the
back and really-
logistics.
Yeah, so like in a way you're right, yeah. But it was more like I like that we were taking a lot of time with it. I just didn't like what everyone was saying to Reika.
Okay, gotcha.
In a way you're right about the dogs too. I have it listed as a mechanic, and I'll explain why later. But I didn't put that one. But you're kind of right. I have a mechanic I dislike, and it's connected to that. I put that I just like my callbacks and I didn't get one. Kingskin's talking to Doug and tells Doug to wait outside, but that was like a perfect opportunity to say, just park on the street or get street parking. It's just like, come on, keep my bits going. That's and fair. Then I didn't have any other real strong dislikes. I just was like, this isn't like anybody's fault or anything. If anything, maybe it's Brendan's fault. There was just so many 1s and 3s. But I didn't feel like the story was getting any worse or like, I don't know. The only time it felt like a 1 mattered is when Jake did it. And like, I don't know. But there were so many. I think I counted at one point. My notes didn't save, but I feel like I remember writing that if he had like rolled a number 3, like 5 out of 6 times in a row, it was like 3, 3, 3, not a 3, 3, 3. And I was like, oh my God, there's so many. And then Izzy kept rolling 1s. And then Alex had a couple 1s. And it was just like, man. But it didn't feel like the story was getting any worse. And it doesn't have to, but I put it down to my dislikes anyway.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing that brings us straight into mechanics if you want to go there already, is that, like, I think that the system is so storyteller-based and not, like, mechanics-based because rolling within 5 of a number at any given point means like net 0, nothing happens, Mm-hmm. And so like you have to be a good storyteller for that to be okay.
Yeah, because I feel like it is a little bit eating your cake and having it for breakfast of like, are we doing long form improv or are we playing D&D? And this episode at least felt more like long form improv than D&D.
I think for sure we're going to get into more punishing stuff later on. But I think there is kind of a plot armor in place until we start getting to like 8 or 9,
I'm going to go ahead and segue into the mechanic I was just kind of alluding to. And you tell me if I'm dumb. Because it's possible I'm dumb. I didn't watch this episode with 100% attention. I was breaking the fourth wall again. I'm a teacher. And so I was like setting up my classroom while it played. So maybe I missed something. But I didn't feel like I missed a huge chunk. But anyway, so this episode is called Meeting the Santa Angelos. Who makes that a plural? What's the second Sant'Angelo?
At one point, I do think that Jack Manhattan's son says he doesn't go by Manhattan anymore.
Okay. So he's a second Sant'Angelo. Okay. So that segues into like the second like broader thing. So I felt like the title was just weird and like gave like a false impression of like what we were actually doing. And because also Sant'Angelo, I'm blanking on her first name. Is it Lucy?
I think it's Lucy.
I think it's Lucy. Doesn't even really do that much. Like there's a funny fight in the beginning and then we get kicks throughout the episode. And that was kind of it.
Yeah, but I think
but same thing with like
made more
the
sense
dogs.
To meet the Manhattans?
It didn't make any sense at all. We weren't meeting anybody really. We had already.
But like if Jack Manhattan is considered part of the family, you know, then it's like
I just feel like the title.
Conflict. You know, we're at the family home.
It just. I feel like the title was wrong. I feel like it was misleading. I feel like the "Are we gonna fight dogs? Not really" was also misleading. In terms of like, if I'm gonna view this as an episode of something, then it was like the mechanics of this episode from this start point to this end point felt incorrect.
That's fair. I think it's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting for sure.
And that's why I thought this episode was middling, because it didn't feel like an actual milestone. It felt like filler. I felt like I watched a filler episode.
Really? I felt like I got the most character building here in terms of like world logic and like if any of this matters in this episode than any of the others.
I'm still shocked by that, because to me I feel like it's going to be like, oh yeah, remember in episode 6 where they were like toying with the fact that their Never Stop Blowing Up personas were like fully taking them over? Yeah, that was a good filler episode.
Why do you say that? Like the first part of that entire sentence sounds very important, and then you just go, "Yeah, that was a great filler."
I told you. I mentioned it earlier. I feel like it takes away the actual purpose of the story, unless they're just gonna screw that's what I'm saying. Like it's getting complicated, because it's like, are we doing a long form improv where the story matters, or are we just having fun playing role play? So if we're just having fun playing role play, then sure, consequences be damned. Let's keep jumping into this movie over and over. Blah blah blah. But if we're doing a story and the consequences do matter, well then having your persona fully take over your character is not the way to get to the climax and the resolution.
I think that's something that happens a lot with these D&D campaigns, or like any really, is like you kind of have to meet it in the middle and see where the ending is and see if that like made it all make sense by the end. So I think it really just depends on the ending. I think it's possible that they have an ending in mind, or not in mind. Whatever happens will make all of this have been at least a little important, you know?
Maybe.
We just can't.
What's one of your mechanics?
Mine, I just thought it was really nice. Everybody was at the table supporting Izzy, I think on some bad rolls, and was just like, hey, you're going to blow up. It's going to be crazy. Like, you're doing bad right now, but hey, man, there's going to be a big moment for you. And it did turn out. I thought that was really cute. I think, like, sometimes that's necessary just to, like, feel like you're playing the game correctly, you know?
Yeah. That kind of leads well into mine. I'm glad Brennan realized this, and that gave me a lot of satisfaction. I almost put it as a like, but then I decided to just talk about the mechanics. But the idea of double blowing up, meaning you double your tokens, is a bad game system. You know that I like good game design. I like to think about it a lot. And I could have told Brennan from the very beginning that is a bad mechanic. It will be exploited. And no good, no dice. I'm glad he realized that it was bad. I don't think he's going to take it away. If he takes it away,
I don't think
then
so
I
either.
give him props, but he's going to leave it, and it's going to be annoying. And like, it just highlights one of the things I don't like about D&D, I guess, of like, and I think you don't like this either, where it's just like, I want to introduce something into the story as a DM or like a mechanic per se, but I don't want you to exploit it. I would really like it to be like a really memorable one and done that had impact on the story, but not so much impact that you feel the need to exploit it. And like, that's a really tough balance to find.
It is a really tough balance to find. I think there's also like, that's something where you can't have your cake and eat it for breakfast or whatever, because you will in a game establish something and then do it really well. And then if it gets exploited, you feel bad. But if it gets exploited and you accounted for that in the absolute chance like way that you were supposed to, and it works, and you want it operates the way you want to when exploited, then suddenly you're the most impressive person in the world, and your name is Brendan Lee Mulligan, and you have a hit show about Dimension 20. And it's like, okay, that is really good, but you can't, like, when it fails, it's really bad. And it's just like, it's almost too high risk for the reward, you know?
You repeated my cake line that I misspoke. Can I tell you a line of dialogue I heard earlier? It's, if anyone can know where it came from, though, it's gonna make us tied to controversy.
Okay, that's so interesting.
I won't say who it is, but they said, I'm really having to breathe out of the bubbles that someone farted in the back of the bathtub," and I think that's really
Uh-huh.
good.
All
They were
right.
like, they were like, my head's underwater, and I have to breathe out of the bubbles that someone farted in the back of the bathtub. Yeah. And I was like, wow, what a line. And they just kept moving. It was all normal. They said that line casually and they just kept moving. There was no, it's just as casual as anything. Okay.
That's from Drake's new album, Farting in the Bathtub.
You wish it was Drake. It's even worse. Number
Oh
two,
my-
second mechanic. I also don't like, but also think it's fine, whatever. But I don't like that when you die, the adrenaline, and you get 10 tokens.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
I thought you would like it. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't like it. I feel like, again, it hopefully no one exploits it, but I feel like it was Reika maybe that exploited it, or like was joking about exploiting, because I think Izzy says like, you should try this. You should like try getting to level 3 injury or whatever, and then Reika's like, yeah. But it just feels like another thing that you could exploit, yeah, because like if I injure myself and get to 10 tokens and maybe I can heal off screen or whatever and get it back down to 2, like that's something I'm going to keep triggering to get 10 tokens. It feels like that's going to be another thing that gets exploited. So
okay, that's fair.
I think
do
the ratio
that is
should just
possible.
change. The tokens you've already earned are now, instead of like they're doubled at injury 2 and now they're halved at injury 4. Now you need
I imagine that part of the game is trying to get them to build an engine to have so many tokens in the last episode of being in the movie that it's the most insane thing that has ever happened, you know? And they're just doing these things like punching the helicopter in the intro, you know? It's like, oh, I'm going to need you to get to a 52 for that. And it's like, oh, okay. And then everybody gives 10 tokens to the person. And it's like, we need this to happen, you know? Like, I think that's almost what it's supposed to be gamed, but not so early as 6.
Okay.
You know?
If that happens, then I will love that, and I will try
I
to
think
remember
that's-
to apologize from what I said in episode 6.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
if
it's
that's
good
how
to
it ends
keep
up being, then
expectations. Good.
yeah, okay, good counter.
It really depends if that's episode 9 and there's a 10 epilogue, or if it's episode 10 and we only do a short epilogue.
Yeah, that's all I had for mechanics.
Okay, you already covered adrenaline level, so I'll move on to my other ones. I have a lot of characters are really good, or players at the table are really good at asking what their character knows or sees in this moment. Like, oh, do I know that happened? Or like, oh, do I see that? And it's like, that is so important because it prefaces that like, hey, if I don't see that, then I won't do anything about it. But like, if I see that, I'd like to do something about it. And it's like, okay, in the DM's eyes, is that information that was available to them? Because there's a lot of people who like will play D&D and just be like, yeah, I heard everything at the table, so I like step into whatever scene, and I'm very like clumsy about it, you know. But this was like, oh, I'm gonna take the second to be like, oh, can I do this? And the DM's job is to say yes, you know.
I agree.
I thought that was really good. My other one is just that they were just cheesing a lot of the blow-ups, just like we're going to blow up so many times in a row. That's basically the same thing as before with the tokens and stuff and the freebies. But there was just like so many, we're going to do the math, we're going to see if this works out. It is kind of the like mechanic being a little silly.
Cool. Agreed. Did you watch the Adventuring Party? Do you know anything that they
did.
bought or anything?
I have. You need to watch the Adventuring Party. One of them is so funny. It is not. It is like it's a must watch. I don't know. They just completely lose it.
Wholesome. What's an upcoming thing they bought?
They are
If you
buying a lot
remember.
of personal skills, like how they had like how Kingskin has wealthy. They're all buying little things like that. Like I think one of them is going to quick healing now. Like some of them have had already. I think Jake's buying full mastery in like hand-to-hand combat or in weapons or something. And then some of them are buying things where it's like, oh, for hot checks, I roll like to die or whatever. That's Allie's buying that. I don't think they went for a suite this time. They've been doing suites of like, oh, we're going to buy like this for the whole party.
Yeah, I was curious to watch this one because Izzy said at one point like they were trying to keep doubling their tokens so that they could basically just buy everything that was left.
Yeah, if they all like chip in, there's a lot of stuff they can get. There is one final one. One day when they all have a D20, one unlocks that is apparently like the equivalent of the greasy shirt thing that was happening. You know.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but let's move on to predictions. I only have one.
Let's do it. Why do you always do this? Predict more.
Maybe I'll do this in the moment, but I just like it's so hard for me to. You know what? Fine. My fucking prediction was that episode 9 is going to be like token heavy.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. That's a good prediction. I hadn't thought of that yet.
And then another of mine is that I just think that this story does end with Usha overpowering G13, and like there's some asinine way like this is that. If not that, then like coming to terms with and like, I don't know, incarnating with that character. But I think more it's probably just going to be an overpowering, this minor villain.
Interesting. Yeah, I assume that's going to happen too. I assume they're kind of just backtrack and be like, actually, you know how I was saying they were overtaking me or like we were one? Yeah, that's not true. I'm like clearly still my own person. They are clearly still their own person. That wasn't like something I wrote down, but I just doubt that what you really like about this episode sticks. The next
According to the adventuring party, that's not true. They like Reiko went on and said like I know it's weird and I'm not trying to like play party conflict, but like, and Brennan was like, no, I think everybody thinks it's sick, like go for it.
Interesting. I still don't think it will. I said this one earlier, but I think Doug is absolutely a traitor. I think Reika should trust their instincts on that.
You're a fool. My third
I don't think
Doug is not a traitor.
I think Greg Stocks / Jake. I said before that they were going to stay in Never Stop Blowing Up along with, I think I said Reika as the other person. I think Reika still has a good chance of sticking behind. I now don't think Jake is going to stay behind based on how they're playing their character this episode. So I'm going to retract an original prediction and change it. And then I think Barsimian, I know what I just said, that the fully possession things isn't going to stick around, but I think Barsimian has been fully possessed.
Interesting. Okay. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Those are good predictions.
Thanks.
Okay, you want to do pyramid?
Yeah. Top of the pyramid. I don't think Jake deserves to be beyond the pyramid today. I wasn't really like blown away by anybody this episode. So I have to bring Jake down and just have him at the very top of the pyramid this week.
How dare you? At the top of mine this week is Iffy. I'm happy to put him here. I think it's like been a long time coming. I think that this was truly like an Iffy episode of like, oh, I'm going to be a great player at the table and really like go above and beyond, make this character work. And do some really, really fun things with it. Even from the start, it is a Brennan thing about like how he describes it, but like if he's trying to just like chicken with the car that Lucy Santangelo is driving, and then Brennan's description of that high roll being that the car flips and then like blocks all the bullets, insane, really good,
Wholesome.
Just
my number 2 is I'm deciding in the moment.
In the moment.
You know what? It's time. I truly think that everyone was so middling that it would be rude not to reward the person who I think has been the most middling from the beginning. And, if anything, that I reward consistency, because now that is the energy at the table. So Alex is my true number 2 this episode.
I think there was some good stuff there. The like adding on to Dang's disassociation, being like, "Hey, like, whatever you do, I respect you."
I did like that King was trying to fully protect Dang. So yeah.
My number 2 is Jacob, just because there's so much good about it, and even like walking away at the end with the MacGuffin and being like sadly in camouflage in a city alone is like, wow, we're really doing like an
I
end of
know.
Act 2 here at episode
Oh, that's so
6.
good. You're right.
Like,
Oh, that's so good. Should I move Jake beyond the pyramid? You're right. It's so good. But I wasn't blown away. You're right. You're right. That's the standard. Greatness is the standard. It wasn't perfect. Okay.
Just so impressive.
Number 3, I'm gonna go with Izzy. I think Izzy was pretty derailing, but I've come to just expect that now from Izzy in this campaign. I think they like the gaming of the system. Like, okay, so like Izzy as a person at the table would not be number 3, but Izzy as a player is a number 3 for me because I like everything that they do. And even though I feel like the title's a little bit misleading, it was like centered around them, and so they were the most interesting part to me.
Yeah,
from a narrative perspective.
that's fair. My 3 is Reika. I think there is something there too. I think about the dice helping tell the story, where Rika's one wits roll is what led to the G13's hacking you thing, and like being able to go along with that so strongly and tie it into everything that's been going on with Reika's like dice even. It's just like, oh, my dice tell a story here that now I'm able to justify in roleplay through a negative dice roll. Just, I don't know. I strive for that kind of like, oh, I'm going to make up a reveal right now that could only have been it the entire time.
Agreed. I can't have Reika any lower than number 4. So copy and paste. Reika is amazing. I don't like the G13 stuff, or rather, I don't love it. I think it's fine, but they continue to just be an amazing improver that I have to give kudos to.
My 4 is Alex. Alex just did a lot of supporting stuff and a lot of like cool combat stuff. Picking up the guy and using him as the whip is like, oh, that's really good. We're doing stuff here. I almost wish it had come into play where it was like, oh, how do like now somebody else needs that same weapon, a guy holding a whip.
Yeah. My number 5 is going to be Iffy. I think that they bring in the most like action tropes beyond Brennan to the table, and I like it. It makes me very immersed into the world.
My 5 is Izzy, just because I think there was a lot of silly stuff going on in this episode, and Izzy's was my least favorite out of all of the like character connections. And I just think at some point it was like, oh, Izzy's gonna keep trying literally anything, including kissing everybody, and also catching that cannonball with your bare hand. It's like, oh, okay, I see where we're going with this now. It's absolutely bonkers.
And then it sounds like Allie is both of our 6s. I'm pretty sure all Allie did was get kicked in the head the whole episode. I don't think they did.
For me, it was
else.
Allie continuously getting kicked was like very funny to me at first, and then after a while, I was like, man, really not getting to shine this episode, just getting kicked over and over. Yeah. It was a funny joke, but like for other people, like in
for
other
Brennan.
Favor. Yeah.
And then this hasn't been true for me since episode 1, but I think Brennan deserves to be below the pyramid in the pits of hell. I brought this up earlier, but there was just so many 1s and 3s that I expect different DMing, and I thought Brennan could do better. And I don't think Brennan fully absorbed any one character this time, because I evaluate them as characters and role players, not as people. And I don't think he was like anybody for like longer than a minute this episode.
I'm right there with you, buddy. He's like weirdly on the other side of the table. It fucks up the camera line. Like why not just put him in between everybody on the other side?
Man, I have a normal pyramid this week.
I know the bit was sad. That there was no bit.
Yeah, there's no bit because this is a filler episode. You can't do that stuff for filler episodes.
Shut up. I hope you get proven wrong so bad. I want this to be the basis of the rest of the episodes in terms of like plot relevance for sure.
Yeah. Did we have a new bit that we were adding at the end of this? forgot.
Sometimes I just want to talk about like the other small stuff that Dropout's putting out.
Okay.
The last two Smarty Pants are really good. You should check them out. Eric Ishii's is very informationally funny in a weird way. But like there are some really really good ones. You need to check those out. I watched the Brennan and Allie episode of the Monet Exchange Slumber Party that they're doing. I haven't been able to watch the first episode yet, but gotta watch my man Brandon, and it's very cute. All of the people there are very funny, and even like some of the more interesting things where they have like a puppeted character, like somebody who speaks through like a robot. They actually are doing some improv and doing like it's not just scripted like I know you find cringe sometimes. It's pretty good. And then yeah, I think that's pretty much it that's going on. You need to watch the adventuring parties because some of them are very funny.
Nice. I do plan to. I don't know. I try to watch things with my fiance, and it's hard to sometimes coordinate all that.
Yeah, fair. But
Alright,
overall, great episode. I'm excited to get to the rest of this.
Yeah, me too. 4 more to go. Thank you for our loyal 100 that have stuck through and checked in on the progress of these reviews. Please consider sharing them and stuff like that. We would love to grow our Never Stop Blowing Up / Dimension 20 fan base. But
yeah, and
until
sure to let us
then,
know what you thought about the episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jared.
Yeah, thanks for coming.